Hello class. In this video, we're going to work on adding and subtracting fractions, problem solving part 2. Before we start with this video, I want you to pause the video, write your full heading, including your first and last name, the date, mathematics, and your period number, along with the title, Adding and Subtracting Fractions, Problem Solving Part 2 in your notebooks. So let's do that now. Now that we have it in our notebooks, we can continue on. We are actually continuing from our previous video, part 1. We're going to take another word problem and try to dissect it and look at it to see how we could solve it. So here's our question. And again, we first read it just to see what the question's about. And it says, Julio caught 3 fish weighing a total of 21 1/2 pounds. One fish weighs 6 5/8 pounds and another weighs 9 1/4 pounds. How much did the third fish weigh? So we just read the question and we know we're talking about catching some fish and weighing the fish. So now we're going to read it a second time to decipher what it is that we need to solve. So Julio caught 3 fish weighing a total of 21 1/2 pounds. One fish weighed 6 5/8 pounds. Another weighed 9 1/4 pounds. How much did the third fish weigh? So we are actually solving here. We want to know how much did the third fish weigh? Okay. That's what we need to figure out, what that weight is for that last fish. So now let's reread this a third time and see what information do we need to know. So it says Julio caught 3 fish weighing a total of 21 1/2 pounds. So we need to know that it is 3 fish. 3 fish is important, so I'm going to circle that. And we know their total is 21 1/2 pounds. So I'm going to circle this. Now we go to the next sentence, and it says one fish weighs 6 5/8 pounds, and another weighs 9 1/4 pounds. So that is important as well, these two amounts, because it tells us what fish 1 and fish 2 weigh. This is kind of a little bit weird, so I'm just going to do a short circle here, and then a circle here. So now we got to look at, all right, what is it that we need to do in order to solve this, right? I'm just recircling this because I cut off that one and I want to do that. Well, before I solve any kind of word problem, I like to draw it out. So here I know that we have 3 fish. I'm not the best drawer, so I'm going to use sort of like a bar model, but it won't be 2 point. So here I go. Here's my bar model. I'm not trying to beat to scale. And I know that if I added all 3 of them, that's going to be the 21 1/2, right? We have our 3 fishes, fish 1, fish 2, fish 3. I'm just drawing a picture. So I know the first fish weighs 6 5/8. So I'm going to write that here. I want to know it's 6 5/8. I'm just going to draw this here. I know the second one is 9 1/4. And then this third one, I don't know what it is. That's my question mark, or I could write it as an X. I have no idea. That's what I got to figure out. That's the question, right? So now that I have this, I can actually draw up an equation or an expression, because I'm going to put an equal sign here, so it's an equation. But I'm going to build the expression first. So basically, I'm doing this here. I'm adding these 3 up. So I know what their weights are, and I can add that here. So I know that it's 6 5/8 plus the second fish of 9 1/4 plus we have our unknown. Now you're used to drawing a box for the unknown, but we are now 5th graders, so we need to start using our variables. Remember, our variables can be any letter of the alphabet to do. So I chose X. I do try to stay away from certain ones like L, or because it could look like a 1, O because it could look like 0. So I chose that. Now I know I've used all that information, and I know that here they all total 21 1/2 on here. Now I know this looks like a 3. This is 1/2. It's not coming out right. I'm going to just rewrite it on the side so that you could easily see it here. So I know that that's what it equals. So I'm going to write what it equals here. And now I'm making it an equation because I have that. I could then add these two here because they're both the same terms, but I can't add it yet because one has an 8, one has a 4 as a denominator. So I'm going to rewrite the information here because they don't change. And my plus my x here doesn't change either. So I look at this and I have a denominator of 4 and a denominator of 8. My common denominator here, I know some people may do 32, but I know 4 goes into 8. So I'm going to use a common denominator of 8. So the 6 and 5/8, I'm going to keep the same. And then for the 9 and 1/4, the whole number stays the same, but I want to change that 4th to an 8. And to do that, I have to multiply the 4 by 2. And what I do to the denominator, I do to the numerator. So 1 times 2 is 2. Now, with that, I can now add this. I can add these two together because they have the same denominator. So I'm going to recopy all the other information, 21 and 1/2. And I'm going to add these together. So we add the fractions first. So I have 5/8 plus 2/8. That's going to give me 7/8. And then I have 6 plus 9 gives me 15. So that's my whole number. Don't forget to still write my variable down because, hey, I don't know what that third fish is yet. Okay. So I look at this and I can do a guess and check on with the variable. I could do the guess and check, or I can just do the inverse, and my inverse of addition is subtraction. So I can actually turn around and do 21 and 1/2. Actually, I'm going to rewrite this over here. I'm going to just draw an arrow to show that my work is going to be done over here because I have a little bit more space. So 21 1/2 minus 15 and 7/8. Notice how I'm lining up my digits by place value. Okay. And I look at this and I go, I really can't subtract this yet because I have 1/2 and 7/8. My denominators are different. So I need to change my denominators. I know that my whole numbers are going to stay the same. So I'm going to rewrite my whole numbers and I'm going to keep the subtraction. I got to figure out though what I want to use as my denominator. So I have 2 and 8. And I know some people will do 2 times 8 is 16 and use that as a common denominator. But I know my factors of 8 and I know my multiplications of 2. And I know that 2 goes into 8. So I'm going to keep the denominators as 8. And this 7/8 doesn't change, so I can rewrite that here. But the 1/2 does. So I have to do 2 times what to get 8? I know it's 4. And what I do to the denominator, I do to the numerator. So 1 times 4 is 4. Now I'm subtracting, so we always have to start with the fractions first. And I notice, hey, 4 cannot have 7 taken from it. So I have to borrow. You can choose to either put everything into an improper fraction, but I'm going to borrow. Borrowing means I'm going to take one whole number. So I'm going to make the 21 a 20. Okay. Why did I do that? Well, I want to be able to borrow it without having to change everything because these are large numbers. And in this case, because my denominator is 8, each whole number is 8 pieces. So I add that to the numerator. So 8 plus 4 is going to give me 12. So I have 20 and 12 eighths. And then I just copy the 15 over and 7/8. Now I can subtract my fractions. So since the denominators are the same, I take the numerators and subtract. 12 minus 7 gives me 5. And my denominator stays the same of 8. Then I have 20 minus 15. That gives me 5. So I know that my final answer is 5 and 5/8 feet. Do you see how this drawing does help us solve this? Now, I chose this first fish to be number 1 and this one to be 2. You didn't have to. This one could have been 2 and this one could have been 3. This one could have been 1. This one could have been 3. Any order, it didn't matter. Okay. But that's the way I chose to do it. You could have changed the names. That's okay too. And I didn't draw fish. You can draw fish if you want. I'm just not a good drawer. Now that we have this in our notebooks, though, I want you to pause the video and copy the question and all of our work, including our answer, in your notebooks. Let's do that now. Now that we have that in our notebooks, I want you to try 2 on your own. So here's our 2 questions. They are the same, except in the first question, the total pounds is 15 1/2. One fish weighed 4 5/8. The other one weighed 7 1/4. In the second question, you still have 3 fish. The total weight now is 28 1/2 pounds. One fish weighs 7 3/10 pounds. The other weighs 3 1/4 pounds. Both questions want to find out what that third fish is. All right. Don't forget to write down the question, show all of your work, and write your answer in your notebooks in a sentence. As always, if you need to go back to our original question here, you may do so, or you can send me a message with any questions.